Hello, everyone. Welcome to Passion Matters. I'm Edward Beck, a priest of the Passionist congregation, and I'm here with a very special guest today. His name is Terry Hershey. I've known Terry for a number of years now. We first met a long time ago, contributing to the same morning television show that used to air on the Hallmark channel. It was called New Morning. And Terry is an author, an inspirational speaker, a humorist, an ordained minister. He's a man of many talents. He lives on Vashon Island in Puget Sound, Washington, where he tells me that the internet connection is not great. So if it seems like he's stuttering or going very slowly, it's not that he's intending it, it's the internet is forcing it upon him. So Terry, welcome to Passion Matters.
Thank you. I'm delighted. And yes, it's the I don't know if it's just because I live on an island or because I'm Amish at heart that the technology doesn't work for me, but just
Well, that's okay. As long as we can hear you and we can see you, we'll wait for your response if it takes a little while. Terry,
I'm honored to be here.
Thank you. Thanks. I wanted to begin. You are someone who has encouraged all of us to take some Sabbath time in our lives. As a matter of fact, one of your books is actually called The Power of Pause, Becoming More by Doing Less. So we're now in the midst of physical isolation and distancing because of COVID-19. And so we've been forced as a culture, as a world community, even to take this pause. And I'm wondering, from your perspective, is it different because we're not choosing it? And does that make it different for how we approach it? Or what's your perspective on this global pause that we're taking right now?
Well, I mean, obviously that's a great question. What's interesting when people ask me what I do for a living, instead of saying whatever those jobs I get paid for are, I tell them I'm in the refueling business because all of my clients are what I call ministries of the heart, which is typically church related. But then I do a lot of healthcare related work and I do a lot of work with educators because many people in those industries burn out, and more so than ever now. But here's the interesting part. You'll appreciate this. So I don't fly and do work anymore because those events are canceled. But as of even 2 months ago at the last event I was at in Anaheim, and I stand and I say to the people, I do the power of pause, but this is pre-COVID. And I say, okay, raise of hands. How many of you this last week were exhausted? How many hands go up? Many of them. How many were distracted? How many were felt overdone, overrun, and hands go up everywhere. And I say, and every single one of them wanted a time and place when they could, in a story I tell, they could let their souls catch up with their bodies. The point is, every single one of us wanted that space and time. Now we have it. So here, what the odd thing is, we're not sure how to claim and or reclaim what has been there all along. And so the first paradigm shift is to see the pause as a gift, as an opportunity to do that. So we begin there.
Well, what about the people who say to me, and I'm sure to say to you, that they can't afford this long of a pause? They have to get back to work. Finances are not good. You can't keep the economy and the country shut down this long. I mean, this is just going to kill us in a different way.
I can't really argue with someone about the whole thing having to do with getting back to work and the money and the stress that toll takes. I'm impacted in the sense that my business has changed that way too, and so I understand that. And so there's two kinds of pauses. One is, what do we do when my job is at stake, and what choices can I make? I get that. However, I would say this, and this has to do with the second pause, because I talk about it as spiritual hydration. We talk about physical immunity all the time, physical spacing, physical immunity. But in my work, I want to talk about spiritual immunity. What keeps me hydrated here? Because here's the reality. At some point, when my soul catches up with my body, which means I'm at home in my own skin, I make decisions that are better, that bring out my best self. And that makes the difference. I was with I was with not that long ago with hospice workers here in the state of Washington, talking about overwork. And of course, now it's even more dramatic in that sense. And there was a sense of exhaustion about them. And their first statement was, "We would love to pause, Terry, but the circumstances don't allow it." Okay, I get that. I'd say, but let me get very personal with you. And here's the deal. At some point in my life, sooner than I think, I will need one of you. I need one of you. And I want you to be your very best. And the reality is, when you give yourself the permission to pause, you bring that best self to the table.
Mm-hmm. And do you find that, since, as you mentioned, you're not traveling and going all over speaking and kind of your normal work either, have you found that you have used this pause time differently than, say, when you were away and would come home and then you would take that kind of more contemplative time? Has it been different since you've been home for so long and doing it this way?
Yes. Let me give you a hint. I love it. Now, as long as I don't look at the bank account or, or my retirement portfolio, but the truth is, we often say, this is what I would choose. And here's the irony, is that we tend to, if I'm not at home in my own skin, then I'm at the mercy of the circumstances around me. And so I haven't been given myself the permission to ask, what do I choose? What would I choose? And May Sarton, an American poet, I'm with her. She says, I spend the first 20 minutes of every morning wandering my garden looking for miracles. That's the way I begin my day. And I'll tell you right now, I remember the anxiety of travel, and I remember the anxiety of coming home. And I remember how many hours it took me just to breathe and get back into normal. But so part of it is just saying, what choices will I make now that will allow me to have my soul catch up with my body? And, I'm channeling Thomas Merton. I'm a Trappist monk now, and I'm loving every bit of it.
Speaking of being a monk, I remember once giving a talk somewhere on contemplative prayer or centering prayer or something. And the woman came up to me after the talk and she said, well, it's very nice that you can do that, but contemplation and being able to take that kind of time is a luxury that we don't all have. So she said, Father, how am I supposed to do it? I have 3 kids. I have a job. I have many obligations. I can't just sit and take an hour every day. And, I thought about it a little bit afterwards, and I get what she was saying. But when a person says, I don't really have the space and time to do that, what do you suggest?
I say then, don't take an hour. Take 2 minutes. Literally. I mean, one of the wonderful realities is you probably saw the post that came out from a priest who wrote a thing that in China, after years, in some of the cities, they can hear the birds again, that they hadn't heard them for a long time. Part of the mindfulness, and the word I use for mindfulness is centering prayer, and it would be a similar kind of thing as I bring myself to this moment, is just in listening to that bird, which takes how long? 30 seconds, 1 minute. But the point is, if I stop and do that, I have just practiced centering prayer. I have just practiced mindfulness. I have just practiced being in the present moment. And a lot of it is the paradigm shift that I don't have an hour, I don't have 2 hours, I don't have the day for the silent retreat. But it's a little boy said to his mama, Mama, listen to me, but this time with your eyes. Okay, just the eyes is contemplative prayer, and it's practiced right there, right now. And it's extraordinary how those little moments add up throughout the day. So if you don't have an hour, I get it. Give yourself the permission to have just five of those moments sometime throughout your day.
That's really great advice, Terry. Thank you. There's a lot of speculation right now as to how and if we are going to be changed as a society and as a culture by this experience. So some people are saying, well, it's not going to last. Some say it's going to be definitely a lasting impact. Do you think we're going to be changed by this as a culture, as a society?
I hope so. I hope I'm, I always talk about things that I wish for. Plato said a long time ago, whatever is honored will be cultivated. And I love that. And I think about the permission to look at the things that I have honored. Like I honored being busy, not just for the sake of money. I honored being busy to be busy because it impressed people. I honored urgency. I honored distraction. I honored seeking some things that were probably not in my best interest. And so one of the invitations whenever our life gets tilted is to ask the question, what do I choose to honor? Or am I at the mercy of that thing that I was honoring? So I hope we change. I have many people who are taking an e-course on my book, The Power of Pause right now. I gave it out. It's free. It's no charge. People can do it. And so many people are taking it. And you know what? One of the number one comments is that's coming back. I hope I have a new normal. I hope that the choices I'm making now to honor my spiritual life in space, I hope I take that with me. I hope that the seeing and being grateful for the sacred around me in the ordinary moments, I hope I take that with me. I hope that seeing the people who don't have and are weak and are vulnerable, I hope that I pay attention to them. I hope I take that with me. So it's an extraordinary gift to be able to say, yes, I want to take that with me.
You mentioned before that you live on an island, on Vashon Island in the Puget Sound. And I am right now in New Rochelle, New York, which was kind of the epicenter for COVID-19, especially in the beginning. And so I'm wondering if the sense where you are, being on an island, a bit more isolated, less populated, is it what you're seeing on the news? Are people acting the same way with masks and physical distancing, or do you all feel a little bit safer because you're more contained?
Well, that's a great question. The island, there was a meme that went around with the picture of our island, and it said self-quarantine since 1874. But as an island, one thing about our island is that there is a sense of community, and caring for one another in the community is a big deal here. And so participation in masks, for example, I wear a mask whenever I go out to do whatever I'm doing if I need to go out. But participation is very high all across the board with regard to that. And we're grateful for that. I mean, there are people who say, why should I participate? Why should I do that? You know, and because as if it's inconvenient. And today, I got 3 emails from readers who have COVID and or they lost a spouse from COVID just this week. That's just today. I got those emails. And so I say to the people who don't want to wear the mask, you see that I understand your feeling and the inconvenience, but can you tell me what to say to these people who just asked me for pastoral care about the death of a loved one because of an inconvenience? And so I will choose to wear the mask.
Hmm, interesting. Your latest book, which I loved, is called This is the Life. And it kind of
Thank you.
offers, you're welcome. Thank you for writing it. And it offers an invitation and a permission to savor this life, to be in the present moment. And I've heard people say that if this is their present life, or as you said before, the new normal, then they're not going to be happy about it. That it's very hard for them to savor where they are right now because they can't go to a restaurant, they can't see friends, they can't keep someone a hug. I mean, how do we develop this capacity to simply be where we are rather than always pining to be someplace else?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, that's a great question, but the irony is that pining, that sense of pining, is no different than it was before. We were always waiting. We always play in our heads the two words "if only" and "when." And now we just add "if only" and when life gets back to normal, or when the economy's opened, or whatever we add to it. In other words, the "if only" and "when," that part hasn't changed in our spirit. And one of the things I want to invite people to is the extraordinary gift of the word "enough," that I haven't believed that in here is enough, that in my capacity to be in this day is enough. Just like that little boy, all he wanted from his mom was your eyes, just your eyes. That's enough. And to witness a miracle in my garden, that's enough. And to get an email from a friend who says, you know, I'm having a tough time in so-and-so city, United States, but thank you for writing your blog. It is enough. I was able to have a Zoom meeting with my grandchildren and sing them to sleep. It is enough. And the one thing about pausing is pausing gives us permission to be present, but it always makes space for gratitude. And so that's my invitation to people, is the gratitude, you know, the Meister Eckhart, famous Meister Eckhart saying about the only prayer we need to learn is two words: thank you. Mm. And so one of the invitations I give to people is in those little moments just to breathe, stop, and say thank you for whatever it is. This is an aside, but I walk every day for several miles in the morning, and it's a very rural area, so it's a country road, and my neighbor around the corner has a flock of sheep. So I walk by them, and my blog that comes out on Mondays, as you know, I write it on Sundays. So on Sundays, when I walk by the sheep, as a former clergy, I need to preach to somebody, so I stop and preach to the sheep. and anyway, I was saying how I was talking to them about we can't wait to return to normal. And I was saying that the look they gave me is, you know, we never left normal. And I learned from the sheep that for them, there's always the gratitude for the grass that they're eating today. And this is not to put a cheerful face on it. It's simply to say that's an extraordinary gift that's deep down inside, and the sufficiency of enough is far more than we can imagine.
Hmm. That's really, really helpful. Thanks, Terry. I want to follow up on your newsletter or your blog, The Sabbath Moment. I await that on Monday mornings, and it's so well done and so helpful and so chock full of inspiration and stories. If people want to sign up for it at terryhershey.com, you can sign up. I think you all should if you're listening and you're not getting it. But I guess when you just mentioned you write it on Sunday, I mean, are you thinking about it all week? I mean, it's so layered and it's so chock full of stuff. Do you just put down notes all during the week and then you sit down and compile them on Sunday so it can get sent out Monday? Because I just can't imagine doing all that in one day or an afternoon.
No, my entire week preceding, like it's Thursday now, my entire week is each day I'm either making mental notes, I'm reading stories, I read voraciously, I'm finding things, and I collect it all. And so then on Saturday, I see everything I've collected. And then on Sunday, I sort it through. because I want it to be current. I want it to be whatever is happening right now with me. And I honestly tell people the reason I write it is to stay sane. And I don't mean that with irony. I literally write it to stay sane. And the other thing is the great quote is that sometimes we need stories more than food to stay alive, because stories ground us, you know. They allow us to remember who we are, that sometimes it's so easy to forget.
Well, that's a perfect segue to how I would like to conclude our time then, Terry, because you are, I think, the quintessential storyteller. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but is there a story that you could end our little time here together with that might be apropos or appropriate or inspirational, whatever?
Well, I'd be honored. The invitation to ask a storyteller / clergy to tell a story means you have to put a time limit on it, which is kind of difficult. So I'm going to tell two stories. They're quick. One is about a typical American businessman, very successful businessman, but the only thing he wanted that he didn't have, because he had everything he needed, but he didn't have inner peace. But he needed inner peace. And so he knew that there was a Zen teacher who specialized in inner peace. So he went to Japan to meet with the Zen teacher for inner peace. And so he said to him, I would like inner peace. And the Zen teacher said, okay. And the American said, no, you didn't hear me. I want inner peace. Okay. But before I give you inner peace, let's have tea. And the American said, no, I don't want tea. I want inner peace. And the Zen master said, but let's just have tea first. So he said, okay. So the Zen master started to pour the tea, and he kept pouring the tea into the cup. And the next thing you know, the cup is full, and now it's spilling over onto the table. And the American is all upset. And he said, hey, what are you doing? I came to you for inner peace. The next thing I know, you're filling a cup, and it's messing up everything. And the Zen teacher said, well, you see, your life is a lot like that cup. You said you wanted inner peace, but your life is already full. And so if the very thing you want is something you want to add to your life, you'll need to make some space for it. So the story about that is, what does this time do that allow me to make space for the very things I wanted, which leads to my second story, and that is this. First grade class is asked to name the 7 wonders of the world, which is not easy for first graders, I would think, but they were really into it, you know, and they're all shouting out their answers. Pyramids and Niagara Falls and all the things you would say. And the teacher's going, yes, cheerleading them on. These are great. And then one little girl says nothing, like in any class, says nothing. And the teacher said, honey, and she said, well, I don't think I understand the question. And the teacher said, why? She said, because I don't have any of the right answers. She said, okay, I'll tell you what, you read what you have and we'll help you. And the little girl said, I think the 7 wonders of the world are to see and to hear and to taste and to touch and to feel and to love and to belong. One of the gifts of this moment is a priest from the 1700s said, we need to practice the sacrament of the present moment. What that little girl is saying is that each present moment, there is a sacrament. And one of the hopes I have is that I can see that sacrament just ever so briefly and let it take root.
That's great, Terry. Thank you so much. I really could listen to you all day, and I'm sure those who are joining us can as well. Again, for more, you can go to terryhershey.com. He didn't ask me to say that, but it's a resource. You'll find out more about Terry. Sign up for that Sabbath Moment weekly newsletter. Look at some of his books because he is a treasure, a resource. And Terry, I want to thank you so much for joining us for Passion Matters today.
It's been an honor. Of course, I'm glad because I'm also your friend. So I'm thrilled to see you're doing what you're doing. Keep spilling your light for us.
Thank you, Terry. Stay safe out there, and hopefully our paths cross in person soon.
All right. See you. Bye now.
Bye-bye. God bless.